Luisa Valenzuela's The Censors begins as a seemingly straightforward story about a man sending a letter, but quickly transforms into a darkly satirical tale about authoritarianism and its impact on the human spirit. Set in a fictionalized version of a Latin American dictatorship, it echoes the real life oppression and paranoia that defined Valenzuela's Argentina during its military regime. From the first page, the story immerses us in a bureaucratic labyrinth, a place where human connection and individuality are sacrificed for the illusion of control. Through its sharp, ironic tone and chilling twists, The Censors exposes how systems of power distort human behavior. Now, let us step into the world of Juan, a man whose simple letter sets him on an irreversible journey. Poor Juan. He was caught off guard that day, and he couldn't realize that what he thought was a stroke of luck was really an accursed trick of fate. Those things happen when you're not careful, and as sure as you're hearing me, one gets careless very, very often. Juancito let happiness, an otherwise disturbing sentiment, overwhelm him when, from a confidential source, he received Mariana's new address, now in Paris, and he knew that she hadn't forgotten him. Without thinking twice, he sat down at his desk and wrote a letter. The letter, the same one that now prevents him from concentrating on his work during the day and doesn't let him sleep when night comes. What did he put in that letter? What had stuck to that sheet of paper that he sent to Mariana? Juan knew there wouldn't be any problem with the text. That the text is irreproachable, innocuous. But the rest? He knows that they probe the letters, sniff them, feel them, read between the lines, and their insignificant punctuation, even the accidental stains. He knows that the letters pass from hand to hand through the vast censorship bureaus, and that few finally pass the tests and are able to continue their journey. Usually, it's a question of months, years, if complications arise. A long time in which the freedom and perhaps even the life of the sender and receiver are in suspense. And that's what has our Juan so deeply depressed. The idea that something could happen to Mariana in Paris through his fault. Mariana, of all people, who must feel so safe, so at ease, there where she always dreamed of living. But he knows that the secret commandos of censorship operate the world over and are granted a large discount on airline fares. Therefore, there's nothing to prevent them from going even to the darkest Paris quartier, kidnap Mariana, and go home convinced of the nobility of their earthly mission. So you have to outsmart them. You have to do what everyone does. Try to sabotage the mechanism. Throw sands in the gears. That is, go to the source of the problem in order to obstruct it. That was the plan when Juan, like so many others, applied to be a censor. Not because of conviction like a few others, or because he needed work like still others. No. He applied simply in order to try to intercept his own letter. Not at all an original idea, but a comforting one. He was hired immediately, because more censors are needed every day, and there's no time to be squeamish about references. The Directorate of Censorship was aware of the secret motive behind the desire of more than one to work in the Bureau. But they were in no condition to be too strict, and anyway, what for? They knew how difficult it would be for those poor innocents to find the letter they were looking for. And even if they did, What importance does a letter or two that slips through the barrier cracks compare to the others that the new censor would shoot down? That's how our Yuan was able to join the censorship bureau of the Ministry of Communications. The building, seen from outside, had a festive air because of the smoked glass that reflected the sky, an air that was in total contrast to the austere atmosphere of the interior. And little by little, Juan became accustomed to the climate of concentration which his new work required, and the knowledge that he was doing everything possible for his letter, that is for Mariana, assuaged his anxieties. Let's take a pause here. Notice how Valenzuela sets the stage with Juan's motives. His decision to join the censorship bureau is not born out of conviction or ideology, but sheer desperation to intercept his own letter. This seemingly small act of self-preservation becomes the foundation of a broader critique. How individuals unwittingly feed into oppressive systems, becoming instruments of their own undoing. The tone here is key. Juan's naivety and optimism are undercut by a heavy sense of irony. He believes he can outsmart the system, yet, by becoming part of it, he begins to lose himself. Venezuela's description of the festive glass building that hides an austere, cold interior mirrors this duality. The facade of freedom concealing the mechanisms of control. Back to the story. He wasn't even worried when, the first month, he was assigned to Section K, where the envelopes were opened with painstaking care to see if they contained some explosive. It's true that on the third day, a letter blew a fellow worker's hand off and disfigured his face. But the bureau chief claimed it had been mere negligence on the victim's part, and Juan and the other employees could continue working as before, although with much less assurance. At quitting time, another fellow worker tried to organize a strike to demand more pay for hazardous work. But Juan didn't participate, and after thinking it over a while, he denounced him to the authorities in order to be promoted. Once doesn't form a habit, Juan thought as he left the chief's office, and when they transferred him to Section J, where they unfold the letters with infinite care to see if they contain poisonous powder, he felt that he had ascended a step and could therefore return to his healthy habit of not getting involved in external affairs. From J, thanks to his merits, he rose rapidly until reaching E, where the work became more interesting. For there begins the reading and analysis of the letters. In that section, he could even cherish hopes of coming across his own missive written to Mariana, which, judging by the time elapsed, should have reached this level after a very long procession through the other departments. Little by little, there were days when his work so absorbed him that the noble mission that brought him to the bureau became momentarily blurred. Days of crossing out long paragraphs with red ink, of tossing many letters into the condemned basket. Days of horror at the subtle and scheming ways people found to transmit subversive messages. Days of intuition so sharp that behind a simple, "the weather is unsettled," or "prices are sky high," he detected the facilitating hand of someone whose secret intention was to overthrow the government. So much zeal brought him rapid promotion. We don't know if it made him very happy. In Section B, the amount of letters which reached him daily was minimal. Very few cleared the previous hurdles. But as compensation, he had to read them often, put them under the magnifying glass, look for microdots with the electronic microscope, and so tune his sense of smell that upon returning home at night, he was exhausted. He barely managed to heat up some soup, eat some fruit, and fall asleep with the satisfaction of having complied with his duty. Let's take another pause here. As Juan ascends the bureaucratic ladder, his transformation begins. His initial mission to protect his letter blurs as he becomes consumed by the demands of his job. Valenzuela masterfully portrays the psychological erosion through Juan's growing zeal for censorship. From Section K, where he checks for explosive, to Section B, where he analyzes letters for invisible threats, each step pulls him further from his humanity. The absurdity of the system is laid bare in moments like the use of microscopes to detect microdots and the condemnation of innocuous phrases like the weather is unsettled. These details underline the paranoia and futility of censorship, where meaning is fabricated and danger is imagined. Back to the story now. Only his sainted mother worried about him and tried without success to guide him back onto the right path. She'd say, although it wasn't necessarily true, Lola called, says she's with the girls in the cafe, that they miss you, are expecting you. But Juan didn't want to have anything to do with the non essentials. Any distractions could cause him to lose the astuteness of his senses, and he needed them alert, sharp, attentive, tuned, in order to be the perfect censor and detect deceit. His was a true patriotic labor, self-denying and sublime. His basket of condemned letters soon became the best nourished, but also the most subtle in the whole censorship bureau. He was at the point of feeling proud of himself. He was at the point of knowing that he had finally found his true path when his own letter to Mariana reached his hands. Naturally, he condemned it without remorse. And just as naturally, he couldn't prevent them from executing him at dawn. One more victim of his devotion to work. In The Censors, Valenzuela compresses layers of meaning into a deceptively simple narrative. At its heart, the story is about the erosion of individuality under oppressive systems. Through Juan's journey, we witness how fear and conformity transform a person, turning a man desperate to protect his love into a tool of destruction. The story's sharp irony and satirical tone reminds us of the fragility of human connection and the dangers of unchecked power. In just a few pages, Valenzuela captures a universal truth. When we lose sight of our humanity, we risk becoming prisoners of the very systems we create. Thank you for exploring this profound and timely story with us. At StoryVerse, we believe in the power of literature to eliminate the human condition. If you enjoyed today's journey, subscribe for more stories that challenge, inspire, and resonate. Until next time, may you always find courage to write your own narrative.